Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to briefly touch on everything that we spoke about yesterday as pertains to Bitcoin and our larger market analysis. We're going to touch on the Bitcoin dominance, see how that's moving along, and we're going to spend the majority of today's video actually touching on the altcoins, moving in and having a look at a lot of select altcoins and how we see things playing out for them. And we're also going to touch on some of the coins that have bounced the best and are looking like some of the strongest and best performing coins. So a lot to jump into in today's video, guys. Let's jump into it. So firstly, just to recap everything that we touched on yesterday, I do think Bitcoin will continue to stay in this accumulation range. As you guys can see, we are still just chopping around in this range, and I think we will chop until roughly this area here, which is that middle of August, before we can actually see price break to the upside. And what's funny about this fractal is I can tell you every single bit of news and everything that happened across this entire accumulation structure here and the reasoning why we won't see price play out like we did down in this zone here. And I can tell you that this pump that happened here was all on the back of a Trump tweet, and I do expect price to just continue to grind higher, ignore this pump, ignore this sell-off, just grind higher before rejecting lower, which is pretty much what we've been doing. And then all of the price action that happened at the end here, where you can see we ended up selling back off, coming down, setting new lows, and then grinding back up, was all the tariff drama that happened in April, and I don't think that's going to play out. I think when price gets back to these levels, it will continue to grind higher, just like it did here, and then break to the upside, and that all of this will be neglected this time around, which is still why when we overlay these fractals over the way price is playing out today, this area here is being ignored, and I don't think this will play out. So still looking for that middle of August for Bitcoin to actually break out. However, I wouldn't be surprised to see the lows get taken at about 111,000. Now, as far as liquidation levels go, there isn't really any liquidity sitting down below that 111,000. As you can see, there is just a little bit. So I think what could scare the market and it maybe trap in a bit more short sellers is for them to send price lower, and then we could see essentially a short squeeze and price shoot back to the upside. As you can see on this liquidation price chart here, we are looking for these $120,000 levels where a lot of the liquidity is lying here for Bitcoin. As far as funding goes, you can see we've flipped back to the green now, which means funding has completely reset, which in simpler terms means the market isn't as overconfident or as frothy as it was last week. So that has been completely reset now, which is what we want to see moving forward. Briefly, if we just touch on how things are moving as far as rate cuts go, we can see that September 17 here, we are now looking at a almost 92% chance of them cutting. Still looking for that cut to come in September, which you guys know my bias on that and what I think that means. As far as some of the best coins that have been performing well in the last 24 hours, you can see there are a lot of altcoins in this list here, and all of this altcoin outperformance that we've seen during this accumulation range here for Bitcoin has led for the Bitcoin dominance to continue breaking down. So I do think that while we see Bitcoin go through this accumulation structure, we will see the Bitcoin dominance actually break down to this 60% level before potentially bouncing again. I do think that bounce, just like touched on yesterday, will be when we see Bitcoin actually break down, but the altcoins will not perform as well as Bitcoin in this breakdown, leading to the dominance actually spiking back to the upside here. Before then, we can see it break and then go into that second phase of the alt season, just like things played out in 2021. And for the altcoin market here, you can see this is total 2 excluding Bitcoin. I do think it will play out similar to what we've seen in the past, where we are expecting the altcoins to bounce again, potentially revisit these lows. Before then, we can actually see things break out here, which is to be expected as we are simply battling those last final Fibonacci retracement levels. And I do think once those get cleared, that it will be straight up from here. And just to briefly touch on the DXY, we can see it is holding these levels as support, just like discussed last week and in yesterday's video. And I am expecting at some point the DXY to shoot back up to these levels before rejecting, and I think that will happen around the middle of August. So as far as everything we've discussed previously, it all looks good. It's all playing out. Nothing's changed. There's no real updates here except for the fact that everything is continuing to just track along like expected. Now let's jump into some select altcoins here and see how these are going to play out over the coming days and weeks. So I'll start with XRP because I know a lot of viewers have a vested interest here in XRP. And as you can see down below here, this was XRP's accumulation structure that it went through most of February up until July and until it broke out here on the bottom side. And I think XRP is going to go through something quite similar to that again. And I think we have seen the lows come in, but eventually at some point there will be that ABC correction, just like we discussed all of May and all of June. I think that is going to play out again, just like it did on the bottom side here. However, again, on the top side, this is the 15-minute time frame, so I think this will all play out by the middle of August, which is where I'm looking for a lot of these coins to actually bounce. And I know that might seem crazy to say for things like XRP, but this entire cycle that we've seen here has been so easy to predict because the whole thing just keeps replaying over and over again. As you can see on the left here, this was the bull market of 2020 and 2021. And that this entire bear market accumulation we had and break to the upside, setting new highs, and then final ABC correction was all here. The same thing. We've seen it all play out in just a micro version, and we spoke about this on the channel, how these were the same two highs. The bear market breaks up to set a new high, takes out these highs here, and then we did the ABC correction, and now we are going in and setting up for something that looks very similar to this entire thing that's played out twice over now. However, as we progress higher, these will be condensed and shortened. And I think that instead of this one, which took 6 months to play out, and the one that came before it that we've seen was all of this time here that took 3 years to play out, this hopefully here will only take less than a month or two to actually play out. So tying this back to XRP, I think XRP will continue to perform similar, especially if we see Bitcoin actually go into an accumulation structure. To see XRP go into a similar accumulation structure wouldn't surprise me, in that the lows here I'm looking for in some final correction would be those 290 to 289 levels. Like you can see on the bottom side here, these are the same regions where XRP actually came and back tested in that ABC that we discussed during May and June. And if you guys caught yesterday's video, you'll see this also lines up with what we discussed on Dogecoin, where we are looking for Dogecoin to push a little higher, come back to these lows, and then eventually get going and go up and push 340% in a very small period of time, less than 40 days, similar to the way things actually played out in this period down here, where you can see that this was the same trend line. And what we've seen is Dogecoin actually reject down to the bottom, set the lows, and now what we're looking for is simply Dogecoin to push a little bit higher, just like it did in October of 24 here, reject back down, which is similar to what we're looking for XRP here, push a little bit higher, reject back down, and then we should start to see things actually break out here. And I think a lot of the altcoins are actually going to set up and perform similar during this time. And I think for a lot of the stronger coins in this market, like HBAR, XRP, Solana, ADA, Dogecoin, SUI, CRV. I think a lot of these coins that I've been looking at, the price targets are all going to be quite similar as far as how high I think they're going to go here. And the 2021 high, I do think will get pierced for a lot of these coins. XRP obviously has already cracked through its 2021 high, but the way I am measuring and judging the height of all of these coins is simply just a full extension from this little correction that they've gone through. And I'm roughly looking for coins to do between 300 to 400% from where current price levels are sitting at. And as you can see for HBAR here, 300 to 400% gets us to those full extensions. Even for XLM here from current prices, 300 to 400% gets us to those full extensions. Again, another coin around that 400%. Even coins like Solana here going through the same accumulation structure, I am looking for them to push to that 300 to 400% here and go to a full extension. 400% for Solana gets it to roughly $840. However, for some of these larger coins like Ethereum here, for example, I don't think they'll do that 300 to 400% gain. I think from current levels, Ethereum at best could see $10,000, which you can see is under 200%. And again, bigger coins like XRP here, for them to get to those price targets that we're looking for from current levels is just over 200%. But examples of a smaller market cap coin here like ADA from current levels to a full extension of this range here, looking for 300 to 400% gain on ADA, gets us roughly between that $3 to $4 level, which is where I'm looking at for this coin. Again, from yesterday's video, Dogecoin, which we touched on, we're looking for that 300 to 400% push here in these final stages, which should get it to around 87 cents. Similar to the way things played out in October and November. And even something like CRV, which is a smaller market cap coin here, just under 400% for a full extension from current price levels. So this is roughly what I'm looking at for a lot of the coins across the market. As far as the 10, 100x coins, I'm not really into those. I don't really do the whole speculative gambling thing, but I'm sure there are some meme coins, if people are willing to do the research and the information, that could get them better returns. As far as what I'm looking for, guys, across a lot of these stronger projects here that have a lot of money behind them and a lot of support behind them, that 300 to 400%, even for XRP here, which is a bigger coin, even 200% is what I am looking for price targets over the next month or two. So I think that covers a lot of the altcoins that I'm looking at. If you guys want me to have a look at any that I haven't spoken about today, feel free to drop them down below in the comments section. And I'll keep you guys updated throughout the week on how all of this plays out. If we do see this Bitcoin dominance break down, go for that bounce. At the same time, we want to see that dollar push higher. And at the same time, we want to see Bitcoin continue to push through this accumulation schematic, break to the downside here, and then work to grind its way up and get out. But I'll keep you guys updated throughout the week on how all of this continues to play out. However, nice to see in the last 24 hours here, we've seen a pretty strong bounce on a lot of the altcoins, and that a lot of these coins that are actually bouncing are quite strong layer 1 coins built on the back of Ethereum. So maybe something to pay attention to there as far as narratives go, and potentially a little heads up as to what coins may start to perform the best when we do see Bitcoin break out from the accumulation schematic that we've been discussing. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like below. If you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.